Ms. Booker, thank you for joining me, taking some time out after school so we can discuss what we saw in your lesson. And so what we'll be doing is just, I'll ask you some questions and you just freely respond based on what you noticed and some of the things that you observed as you watched your lesson. All right, so on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being the worst and 10 being the best, how would you rank that lesson?
7.
A 7. Okay, that's pretty high. So what pleased you about the lesson? What made it be a 7?
The fact that I was actually prepared for it. And the children were engaged. So that's the biggest thing. And most of them walked away knowing what it was that I wanted them to learn from the lesson. Absolutely. They were able to, that was the biggest thing.
Absolutely. So if you had to move it closer to a 10, what are some of the things that you would need to change?
Although all the children were engaged, I think it could have been a little more interactive because I felt like it was a lot of teacher talk, more so than students actually facilitating their own learning. So if I could find a way to bring them into the teaching part of it a little more.
Yeah, and let me just say that having less teacher talk is not anything that's uncommon. What would your students be doing? I know you said you want less teacher talk. Can you tell me what the students would be doing?
I guess I could have presented them with the problem and let them really come up out with the ways to solve it. Versus, I think I did more of guiding them to the answer versus letting them really think of how to get the answer versus putting it right there and they just had to figure out how to use it. But if I did it over, it would be give them the problem and let them figure it out.
Okay. So are you saying that there is a certain type of student talk? So not all student talk is created equal?
With the group that I have, I feel like they could have got it themselves. Because it was almost as if they were into it, but I kind of gave it to them at the same time.
Got you. So your student talk, it sounds like not just that they're giving answers or they're responding to your questions, but they might be even asking questions, possibly questioning each other.
Right.
Okay.
Or even coming up with a new question, like a new problem to solve.
Okay. Yeah. That sounds.
I guess the next part of that would be, now you have it. Let's see if what you know, can you teach it to somebody else, or can you give them? Can they get the same understanding of your problem as they did when I kind of got it?
Okay. So do you get the sense that your students enjoy discussing and talking about their ideas?
They love that and they want to be the teacher.
Ah.
So it's like, if I can show you that I understand, and that means I might get a chance to stand in front of the class and actually do this. And that's the part they love.
Right. How are you going to measure? What do you think might be a way to measure whether this is happening or to what degree it's happening?
So ultimately, there's always that tangible piece. So I feel like if they do it on their iPads, as we did in the lesson, they're able to share it, airdrop it with me, and I can actually look and see, what was your thought process, because I'm sure they're writing down a lot of, they're writing their ideas down in notes like they did during the lesson, so I'll be able to see it. And then also just listening to that conversation to see, really if they have it. And because more than anything, I can hear it.
What are some of those specific things that you hear that let you know that the students are using their discussion, their accountable talk in such a way that they're doing more of the thinking and more of the producing?
So are they able to actually make sense of that and come up with a range of numbers for themselves? And then also just looking, because at the end of the lesson they had to use the correct symbols. So seeing if they have a true understanding of
is there something that's already in place at the building level where students are making sense of the problem, using vocabulary, determining whether their answers are reasonable and make sense?
So the S&Ps, I can bring that connection in, of course, because we do talk about that during the lessons. So just making sure they can see where a portion of the problem applies to a specific SMP. So
Okay.
like being able to say, okay, well, I know I made sense of this problem, you know, and that's I think SMP number one. So they can actually go back and reference, okay, I know I did this in this lesson, so my answer won't be so off the wall because I actually made it make sense. And just being able to refer back to that, and because it's not foreign to them, you know, it's more so of how they can connect it to this lesson versus just knowing that these are the SMPs and this is what we use them for.
Yeah. And even in your last comment, you brought in something brand new that I think is very valuable. I'm not sure if you're aware of it. You stepped into the area of student accountability. At first, when we were having this discussion, you talked about how you wanted to be able to know whether they could do it. And then in that last comment, you said there's also an element of, I know I did this. So that might be something that we need to explore. The SMPs, is there possibly like a checklist? Maybe we could get a checklist of some kind.
So outside of them, I mean, no, they don't have a checklist, but they do have a copy in their math journals.
Okay.
And then they're also on the wall in the room. So now I guess it would be just a matter of having that actual check to where they can check it off so that each time they do a lesson, they could actually have it.
And maybe even some specific student behaviors that help them to know I've done something in SMP 1 because I demonstrated this in my work. Okay, so we've talked about a lot. Do you think that is what you want to be your goal? You mentioned student engagement, and then you went into the students being able to have more talk. And I think that all of those things are related. The more they're talking, the more they're engaged. And then we started to kind of pick away at it to be more specific. So yes, now their accountable talk looks a certain way, sounds a certain way, and not only do I hear it, but they hear it as well. So I'm just making sure that we see the progression and that you're okay with where this is headed.
Right. I think that's a good start. Like I feel like it's an attainable goal.
Okay.
Because we're already kind of there. It's just not honed in on. Like that's not exactly what we're doing. We're getting bits and pieces of it. So I think if we actually bring it in and focus, how we focus.
So a goal of students being more engaged in math by making use of accountable talk, and then we could measure it using an SMP rubric or checklist. So if you could hit that goal, how much would that matter to you? If you could hit the goal of students being engaged and using their SMPs to drive accountable talk?
It would matter a lot, mainly because I feel like it would give the students a sense of ownership of their learning, and they're not just learning to learn it; they're actually taking it. I feel like it'll stick more because they're owning the learning versus just I'm doing this because my teacher said I have to do it.
Right.
So I think that would matter because it's something they would carry with them, not just in this lesson, but moving forward. It could possibly be something that sits with them even when once they leave me. They'll have, at least it'll jog their memory, even if they're not exposed to it again or have an opportunity to do it at that level. They'll still remember.
Yeah, when you're talking, I hear connections. So what are some of the steps? Because we have to, make this attainable, right? And really start to think about what it looks like moving forward.
So first I need to make that checklist.
Checklist?
Yeah, so that they'll actually have it and I can show them how it's used versus just handing it to them and saying, okay, here's a checklist, make sure you look at it. But going back and revisiting the SMPs and explaining how those behaviors line up with each SMP. And then bring in the connection of how we can relate this to what we're actually learning.
So that's actually, as we make our next steps, we can integrate some of those as teaching strategies. So reviewing the SMPs and being explicit. Okay. you referenced that the students have the SMPs in their journal.
In their math journal.
Okay. So maybe as you talk about conversations, they literally have to, refer to their journals or right here and being able to name what the SMP is, and they're explaining their thinking. And so the teaching strategies again. I'm wondering if there are any ways that you can make use. You mentioned the students airdropping. How can we make use of technology as part of our teaching to meet this goal?
So I know, like we use notes, and basically that's how they work. And then I was able to see it through my Apple Classroom. I could see what they were doing. But I think even more so, like, it's other apps, like they have the, I think it's called Max or something like that. I forgot the name of it. But it has all those, it has like the base 10 blocks in it. So I can actually bring that in to, like, they'll have that interactive piece with the manipulative virtual. So just thinking of different ways to give them all the things that we have in the room, but they could do it in one spot without having to get up and maneuver around. And for those kids who need that visual piece of it, like that was something that I missed this time, giving them that visual, but they would actually have it and know that, okay, it's here, you can use it. So that's something I would do.
And some of the apps that you mentioned, do they have the capability to add in the audio portion? Because that's a big piece of what you're mentioning. Okay.
And they've also learned how to save different things and put them into the apps that will let them talk over and like do the annotations for each slide.
I love the fact that you're already implementing some things. So it's just, really focusing in and having that laser attention on that one thing that you want to accomplish. Do you think it would be meaningful or beneficial to your children to go back and review what a thorough answer looks like and sounds like?
Yes.
I know that one of the things I thought about was there's something in reading that you all are using that helps the children to have a thorough answer. Isn't there some strategy that you already have used?
With the race strategy?
The race strategy, absolutely. Yeah. And that could easily transfer over into math. So as the children are connecting it to the SMPs, they already have that prior knowledge.
Right.
And you get a lot of bang for your buck. Now, I really like that it's student focused because we started out thinking about what you want, and then now we turned it to what the students should be able to do and how they can have ownership of it. So how do you feel about all of this process?
I think it's gonna go well now. Like looking, it's always different when you're actually doing it, and then when you go back and look, it's like, oh, I could have done this.
Oh, that video, isn't it a monster?
Yes. Like, oh, I thought I did this, but I can see where the improvement is needed.
And that's why this conversation is so good. And I know, sometimes we can get unsure when videos come in, but it really did help. And if you're open, when we continue this process, we can video again and look at the new reality. So thank you so much. And listen, I'm looking forward to coming in and seeing